right. Good morning. It is Friday, July 11th, and I just realized my hair dryer broke. So my hair is the other thing is I bleached my hair the other day and I used the wrong kit and it like burned off the top. So it's like all short. Anyways, sorry. Morning, Eleanor.
Morning.
Um, let's is there anything you want to open with, or do you want to jump right into content or
Well, I think we could open with saying that the kinds of planetary aspects we're exposed to at this point are fairly intense. I talked about it in June with the full moon of June 11th. We're coming up to another full moon, which is going to be another strong one. Everything between now and September 9th is pretty intense. And many people are having difficulty with navigating their personal life and believing that the collective energies around the world are going to impact them in some horrific way. Now, some people, the floods in Texas certainly are scary. And I would urge everybody to be aware that we are in tumultuous times cosmically,
Mhm.
and that it is wise to be prepared. And certainly, I'm, I would be very reluctant to travel at this time and be away from my home and my animals.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, okay. Is it possible? Like my life has been very tumultuous the last 3 weeks, as you know. Um, and you've talked about these energies, and it seems like everyone else around me is still and calm, like, until they share things with me, and then. But I feel like I'm 3 weeks ahead of where people are. Like generally, when everyone else is having a shit show, I just had mine. Is it is it plausible that I'm on a fast track? Is it plausible? I mean, I don't even understand what I'm asking, except that every time you talk about this, it's I seem to be either ahead of it or I'm terrified that like really there's more coming at me because fuck's sakes, it's been brutal. So,
Um, it is possible because of your splenic awareness
mm,
that you sense things before other people do. And you may not be anticipating what's up ahead for you fast enough.
hmm. But
So rather than being proactive, you may be reactive.
yeah, it's really hard to be proactive with stuff coming at me.
Well, stuff can only come at you if you wait for it to come at you.
Yeah.
So if you decide what your trajectory ideally would be and then make it happen.
Hmm. Well, it's interesting you mentioned like not traveling because my intent was to travel next week. I'd already paid for a ticket for it's called Hypno Thoughts, which is a hypnosis conference in Las Vegas. And I'd already paid for it. So I was like, well, I need to either drive there or fly there and figure out accommodations. And that was be my plan today was to see if I was serious about that. And then I thought I'd drive to Santa Fe and see some old friends and get some space. And I've already done some travel and already and went through everything as you know while I was doing it. So
Well, that sort of delays the resolution.
mm. Well, my resolution is probably not to live here. So I also feel like I need to explore and see.
You already know, Sean, where you want to be.
Oh yeah, where's that?
I
I
don't
mean,
know. I don't know
what?
where it is, but I know you know.
Mm. Well, then how do I get that answer for myself? Because I mean, I know what I've been telling people. I think I mentioned to you, like I could see myself living in Florida. And if you say that to anyone here, I'm batshit crazy. Um, but I lived in Bermuda for 5 years, and I've loved the sun and the heat and the palm trees, and I felt healthy there. But there's nothing to do there. I can't imagine the pickleball's all that good because it's a uptight tennis and town. And
Well, it depends which town you go to.
yeah, but also the music scene is just non-existent. So yeah, so I mean, Florida keeps coming up on my mental radar.
So
Mm.
why wouldn't you take a trip to Florida?
Well,
If
outside,
you go to Vegas and you go to Santa Fe, that's not a place you're considering living.
I probably, yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, Vegas, lots of live music, an enormous amount, and there's an amazing facility there that I actually thought about working for. It's called the Sphere. It's a $4 billion brand new theater that the whole like it's like IMAX times 10. And I would love to create a show that was there. That in my mind that would be an amazing long-term achievement. But Vegas is super hot, super dry, and yeah.
And super crazy.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would. I mean, what's interesting though is every time I've been there, the true locals there are some of the most lovely people. And I
Mhm.
think it's because they are helping ground the craziness there. So I'm not interested in casinos or smoking or any of the debauchery that goes on there. But hmm. Okay, well, we can park that. This isn't about my travel plans. So, what would you like to talk about first? You had mentioned the patterns of orientation. There's the four worlds exercise. Where would you like to go?
I'm open. Where do you want to go?
I'm
Your
I'm all, I'm all, it's my show, but it's called the patterns of orientation is always interesting to me. And maybe I'll preface that by saying that, in human design, it was called the incarnation cross. And I honestly think that by tapping into that, that's how I found you. And then through finding you, I discovered there was more to me than just a single cross or a single orientation.
well, in human design, Ra talked about the incarnation crosses, and the way they are determined is because the sun and the um, earth are always in opposition. And the calculation we use in a basic human design chart is has two calculations, the birth date and time and place, and 88 solar degrees prior to that time. And so those two sun positions and the two earth positions make up the incarnation cross, which are based on the hexagram of the I-Ching
Mhm,
and the fact that they give you different lines in that angle.
mhm,
Um, in fact, Ra did not really talk about the incarnation crosses in a significant way. What he ended up talking about was the profile
mhm,
from the cross,
mhm,
and the profile from the cross did not hold up scientifically.
mhm,
And it's been one of my frustrations in the work I'm doing to have done the science and to find that the human design community has not really been interested in what held scientifically and what did not. So, although in
mhm,
2000, I published a whole bunch of science on type and profile and definition and the triple design matrix and all of that stuff. The human design community didn't embrace any of it, nor did Ra. And um, so I did at the time make public that the problem with the incarnation index was that instead of using the keywords of the position of the sun and the earth, the human design community adopted the simplistic, dumbed down version, which is if you
I
laughing
can
at
see
me,
the cat.
Sam.
I can see the tail. Well, can I interrupt you there for a second? There's a couple of things. And I agree with everything you're saying. I either you told me this or someone else did that Ra only either channeled or only came up with the incarnation cross for the Sphinx, and then after that, people asked him for the others. So then he started producing them. I don't know where I heard that.
I don't know where you heard that either. That's not true.
Okay, all right, so I can discard that. Um, cool. Keep going.
Um, when Ra presented the incarnation index, um, he presented it from a little book, um, which I happen to have right here, I believe. No. Um, well, I have it, but anyhow, um, I have a cat on my lap, so I can't do much. Yes, I have you on my lap. He's purring away.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to think which came first. I believe it was profile that he came up with first.
Hmm.
And he came up with profile in May of 1997. And he came up with profile as a way to make sense out of the hexagrams of the I-Ching and the combination,
Hmm.
because each hexagram has 6 lines. And when you look at the sun and the earth, they're in different lines because of the timing. Um, so Ross said, well, how can we make sense of the trigrams? And he said, well, the first 3 lines of a trigram would be like the lower floors of an apartment building. And the top 3 floors, so it's a 6 floor building. And what would you make sense out of the lower level versus the second level versus the third level? And how could we delineate it so somebody who wants to see their profile could make sense out of it? Now, this was before he had the descriptions of the um, incarnation um, names. Later, he went through the wheel with the quarters that it's broken into. Um, And if you really think about it, 1/4 you're coming with the progression, and if let's say you're coming over the top of the wheel, you're going to go from the beginning phase of that quarter to the latter phase of that quarter. And each quarter is going to repeat the same patterns, but a different iteration of it.
Hmm.
So, as I have said in talking about noble energy maps, that what we really have in looking at the 88-degree prenatal birth, and then what I did was to say, well, in astrology, we go prenatal and we go postnatal to figure out timing in doing secondary progressions. Why wouldn't we use the postnatal in calculating a birth chart as well?
Mm,
Because if we're looking at a progression of energy that we're saying influences a baby, we know developmentally that a baby's cortex and the baby's gastrointestinal system are not developed for the first 3 months of life. And the pediatricians now call the first 3 months of life the missing fourth trimester. I know as a developmental psychologist that the baby changes at 3 months of age.
mm,
You have two children. I'm sure that when they were babies, you looked to see when they smiled and when they reached for an object.
mhm.
A baby generally reaches for objects at 3 months of age. If they don't, you begin to wonder about their cognitive development. So it makes sense from an astrological perspective to do 3 months before birth because that's when the cortex becomes impressionable in utero. And at 3 months postnatal, the baby is reaching for objects. So that 6 month developmental period is very important in determining who somebody is at core. And what I've documented statistically and scientifically is that the four worlds of the Kabbalistic tree of life and the four worlds of noble energy maps are actually documented statistically through the factors in the centers.
Mhm.
I've never presented that information before. What I did present was the statistics on profile. Now, what the problem with the statistics on profile and using profile as a construct to say anything about a chart is that it's an artifact of the math.
Mhm.
So I tested, I don't know why this just went on. My cat stepped on something. Um, when I did the statistics, I used 30,000 cases in matched groups. And I'll, my book on the science is coming out, and all the details of the sampling will be in there.
Mm,
How I matched the samples. So I had um, groups of 5,000. And in that group of 5,000, 2,500 would have had a condition, and 2,500 people would not have had the condition. But if you're doing astrologically based research, the latitude, longitude, the range of ages, in other words, I needed to pick, let's say I was dealing with people who had heart attacks. I needed 2,500 people who died of heart attacks, who had the same birth dates as 2,500 people who didn't die of heart attacks. And I had to have them matched by gender and by age and by latitude and longitude in order to hold as a scientific study. So if, for example, I picked someone your age and sex, or let's say your dad, who we know has a heart condition,
mm,
but now he had surgery. He's probably not going to die of that. But in my matched sample, I had a group of 5,000 general population, heart attack patients, AIDS patients, and I had lesser groups of fibromyalgia patients matched and addiction. So I
mm,
had 5 groups. 3 of the groups were 2,500 matched samples, so 3 groups of 5,000. No, that's wrong. I had more than that. 10, 20, 30. I probably had groups of 5,000, not 2,500 each, because I had uh, a sample of 30,000 people
Mm,
matched. And then I had fibromyalgia and I had addiction. And I only had 100 in each of those groups because they were one group were fibromyalgia patients from Marvin's practice as a specialist in fibromyalgia. And our daughter had done a study for her dissertation on fibromyalgia. So we had the data
mm,
and we had asked for the birth data. And then an addiction group came from Randy Richman, who had an addiction center in Phoenix,
yeah.
I
Well,
believe. So um, when I took the groups and I looked at profile, if you have a group of, let's say, 5,000 people, it would, and you're looking at any characteristic, let's say you're looking at IQ, you expect it to be a normal curve. 68% of the population are going to be very similar in construct.
mm,
They're going to fall in the mid range. You're going to have a few outliers on the end who would have a different configuration and still be in the sample. So, if we're dealing, for example, with IQ, the very center, we have 68% of the population varying between um, an IQ of 90 and 110, or 80 and 120. So you're going to have a sample that is big in the middle, and then at the very end, so you'd have 2% of the population with an IQ over 130.
mm,
Um, and so when we're dealing with statistics and we're dealing with large populations, which you want to do to be accurate, you want to be certain that if it's a real variable, it's going to vary in the population. But how would you expect it to vary? So let's say we're talking about profile. You would expect that if profile were real, there would be more people in certain profiles than other profiles. It would form a normal curve. There would be some profiles that would be very few. Now, in Ra's view, he said the 6-2 was rare. Not very many people had it. He
mm,
was right because it's mathematical,
mm.
not because a general population would have a distribution that would be a normal distribution. Are you following?
I am. Yeah, I have lots of questions, but keep going.
Um, so in the research, every single group, every single profile had the same number of people. So in the juxtaposition, you had 2% of the population because it of the math. And the math put the 88 degree such that very few people had a profile that was a 6-2, let's say, or a juxtaposition, whatever the numbers are. I don't use it, so I'm not that familiar with all the numbers.
Mhm.
What I use are the keywords because keywords show process. So if, let's say, somebody had the right angle cross of the Sphinx, what does that say about them? What does it say about their process? It says that they are here to gain self understanding, self knowledge. If somebody is the pattern of Maya, what would they be here to learn? It's way more informative than saying, oh, you're a 3-5
Oh, for sure.
or you're a 1-3,
Yeah.
which is an artifact, again, of the math. So you cannot attribute interpretive meaning to something that is a mathematical distribution.
Yeah.
And so, for all of the human design people out there using profile, um, you're using a construct that has no validity, has no science behind it, and can greatly disempower people.
Hmm.
I would suggest that you use the keywords instead. And if you're a human design person, you're going to have two sets of keywords, one for the sun and the birth time, and one for the prenatal time, because both had a sun and an earth position. So use the keyword.
But again, by keywords, and you said you were talking about right angle Sphinx and Maya, which are the two predominant patterns of orientation
Let me find the book. Hold on.
in my chart.
I changed a lot of the words, but why that's there. Let's see what.
While you're looking, you said a couple of things there. One was the 6-2 is rare. Um, I'm surrounded by them. Um, so I don't know if that's what you call a fractal.
You know what? I put it in the other in the bookshelf. Hold on.
Okay.
Rock called it an index of names. But if you look at the 6-2s, look at the keywords. They may have very different keywords.
Yeah, I've never done
And
that.
that might tell you a lot more about who the person is than, so for example, I just turned to a page that says the cross of the pattern of rulership.
Hmm.
And there were four of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on where they are in the wheel. So a pattern of rulership will vary to some degree in its meaning depending on where it is in the wheel. And you'd read it differently.
Okay.
Another one is penetration.
You're talking about the patterns that would appear in a 6-2. Is that what you're referring to?
No,
Oh, okay.
a
Yeah,
six
just
two would be um, a 6-2 would be a left angle cross of cycles.
mm,
So it'd be a pattern of cycles. Whereas the um, right angle of it, so the lower numbers would be penetration, and then the middle layer would be a changing layer.
mm,
So when you get to where the hexagram shifts from one to the other, from it changes.
mhm. Interesting.
It's an interesting concept, and it's an interesting, I find using the keywords extremely interesting.
Mhm. Well, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, that's kind of where we started here is the incarnation cross, I believe, kind of helped lead me to you. It was kind of a bit of a, a targeting system. But since then, I've gotten
So,
course corrections. Well, I mean, it's hard to explain or describe, but the timing of it was someone that you and I both met, Orion. He had a YouTube video at one point that we was talking about incarnation crosses. And it was the first time that I'd heard someone, and I have many questions about this actually, but it was the first time I had heard someone say, you don't want to try to be your incarnation cross. You know when you're on the right track when you kind of embody it. And it was around that timing that I found you. And then through you, I got course corrections. So like it was still helpful, I believe. Um, but I'm also right there with you.
Any system, Sean, can be helpful if you believe it.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm always, well, self-knowledge that you're talking about in the Maya, and like I'm here to figure this stuff out. And I could say I'm bumbling along, but maybe I'm not. I'm continuing to refine
Hmm.
and gain more information. So yeah, it's fascinating. The one question that keeps popping in my head, and it was something you said so early on, so I know I'm bouncing around, but you said something about the first 3 months of a baby's life
Life.
is you said something about gastrointestinal, and that is just stuck out in my head. But like, what do you mean by that? Like, I mean,
But
they
you know that babies often have digestive issues in the first 3 months of life. They
sure.
get colicky, they spit up, they do well if they're breastfed, but a lot of babies are bottle fed.
Hmm.
Um, their gastrointestinal system is not fully developed. That's why babies who breastfed are often not fed until they're much older.
Mm,
You know, it used to be in vogue that babies would get fed when they were a month old. Then it became into vogue that no, if a baby is breastfed, you don't give them solid food until they're 7 or 8 months old. And then you introduce it slowly. So we know that the cortex starts registering in the third trimester of pregnancy.
hmm
That if you play music to a baby in utero in the last trimester, they will respond to that music after they're born.
hmm
If you play it in the first 2 trimesters, they do not respond
Hmm.
if you don't play it in the third.
Interesting.
And we have brain scans that show that the third trimester, the cortex is becoming operational. It's on board.
Hmm.
We also know that the gastrointestinal system is there, it's functional, but it is not at 100% functionality. And so, if you think about that, it explains in part why ancient astrologers, when they were doing the calculations, went back 3 months. In astrology, uh, we use 3 months before birth, looking at the moon. And in astrology, you say there's a day for a year. So when we're looking at the timing of a person's chart in their life, we often go back 3 months and we go forward 3 months. Now, why do we go forward 3 months? Because in astrology, we think there's a day for a year. So the place that the moon was a day after you were born is going to tell us something about the timing of something in the first year of your life and onward. Why did they use 90 days in astrology? Because that's how long people lived on
hmm
the outside.
I thought it was 84 years, but yeah, wasn't it
Um,
wasn't it based on 84 years?
no, in astrology, we use 90 days. In design, we use 88 solar degrees before birth, which is a little less than 3 months.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just confusing. Astrology itself is based on an 84-year average human lifespan. Sam, isn't that correct?
No,
I thought we talked about that before. Huh,
it's
okay.
84 is Saturn returns.
Oh, okay.
So it and is a Uranian cycle, I believe. But so a lot, the moon, the different planets have different cycles.
Mm-hmm.
In astrology, when we were hand calculating, and I learned astrology hand calculating, even though there were programs, um, you take the birth time and you use books of ephemeris, which chart the planet's position every single day. And you would look back 90 days and you would look forward 90 days when you were doing progressions.
Mm-hmm.
A progression says if you're X years old, here's what the where the planets would be in relationship to your birth chart at that time and place. And some astrologers relocate and other astrologers don't.
Mm-hmm.
And there are arguments both ways. So I looked at my charts, progressed for living where I was born, and I still use that as my progress chart, even though I've moved from New York to Chicago to California to South Carolina. So I've lived in my life in 5 major cities, and I still use my birthplace to progress my chart because the relocated charts didn't work for me.
Hmm. I'm just gonna go with why my brain, like this is just popped in my head, but Florida is in the same time zone as Toronto or North York, where I was born. Is there any
It's
correlation?
different. It's a different latitude.
For sure. But there's something about Florida. Now, it could have been that we went there as like 4 or 5 times as a kid for our vacations as a family, and those were happy memories. But uh, I've had a fascination around. You probably heard me talk about it. Like I know more about the history of Disney and the company and the technology and the project than probably most people. Like it
Where
just
would you want to live in Florida?
I don't know. I actually a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it, I did a deep dive and Fort Lauderdale and a few other places seem to be, I was having a little conversation with ChatGPT and giving it my criteria and bouncing back and I don't think I'm a Tampa guy and or anything like that. But I don't know. I haven't been there. Well, no, I guess I've driven through, but I've never thought about being there. So, but there is something, you said earlier, like I know where I want to go. If I'm being honest, that seems to be where I want to be.
Why don't you go there? Why would you go anywhere else if you want to be there?
Well, right now the challenge would be work permits and permission to do things and all that kind of stuff. But those are things that I know I can resolve. I've actually looked into there's a special visa called an EH-1 or something, and if I have like an American co-owner of my bingo business, then I can basically get my own permit, and I have 5 years before I'd have to reapply. So I mean, I've done that research, and it take 3 or 4 months, and it's right on target, and so yeah, I mean, it kind of seems to be like my brain's already formulated that. Um, yeah, why am I not? I don't know. I think it's mostly just I've only had 3 days to myself so far in the last 30 years where I know this is my decision. So I'm trying to be discerning and careful. Um, but yeah, I think that's probably where I'm going to end up. And I probably should go there and scope it out and see how it feels. I've definitely been to Florida enough that I know how Florida feels. Um, I mean, I've been to Gatorland 5 times. Who goes to Gatorland? Whatever reason,
Really, my son's neighbor,
yeah.
next door neighbor, had a 7 foot gator in their driveway 2 nights ago.
Hmm. Yeah, they're amazing creatures. Not that that's would be my draw there, but yeah. Yeah, and like there's a place there called Give Kids the World, which is basically it but most Make-A-Wish kids go there if they're going to go spend time at Disney. So it's basically properly accessible and stuff, and it's such an amazing place. And I volunteered there when I went there on vacation, and it's just it's cool technology. I wonder maybe I need to reach out to that Ian guy. That's hmm, that's a whole other conversation I forgot all about. Hmm.
Well, what I would like to mention, since I am getting ready to publish the science book and we've been talking about science, is that um, in 2000, when I did the statistics, I had run what's called factor analyses. And what a factor analysis does is it looks at, um, it's interesting because I did it on profile as well, and nothing showed up. Um, so for example, if we were to say um, that a factor analysis would have been, let me back up. If the factor analyses on profile had showed that every juxtaposition profile had the same factor as every other one, then it would have been significant.
Mhm.
But it didn't. The only things that showed up as clumping together with factors were centers. And we got a distribution of centers that said the crown and ajna have a lot in common. The sacral center, the root center, and the splenic center have a lot in common, way beyond chance. They had things they were measuring that were the same, that were related to each other.
Can you give an example?
Um, we know that the in the four worlds, we know that the splenic center, the root center, and the sacral center all feed the spiritual self, and that they have um, the 53-42 in common. And the energy that connects them is a similar energy. It's more alike than the energy relating the crown and the ajna,
Hmm.
because those have certain things in common that the other centers don't have. The other center that has something in common is the throat center, the solar plexus, and the sacral center. What's so interesting is that in the tree of life, we're told that the sacral center is where the spirit resides. And we're also told that one of the keys to self-actualization is the differentiation and discernment in truth between the solar plexus and the splenic center. So it's very interesting that the solar plexus can manifest through the throat, whereas the splenic center grounds itself in the root.
Hmm.
Very important differentiating factor. And yet, both tested with the same factors way beyond significance. The other clump is the solar plexus. Did I say solar plexus? I meant sacral, self, and throat. The solar plexus and the heart center connect together. Um, I believe one of the paths of intelligence in the tree of life linked the solar plexus and the heart center. I don't remember which one exactly, but I know I taught about it. Um, what happened when I did the factor analyses that lumped these groups, four groups, each differentiating different things, and each delineating a world. The earth, the air, earth. Well, we have the mental waking world, the spiritual archetypal world, the emotional angelic world, and the physical biological world. The biological physical world has things in common with the spiritual world. So the four worlds broke down with factors and also gave validity to the structure of the body graph. And that's extremely important
Hmm.
because it said that we're not just guessing at what the function of each of these centers is, but if we go back to the tree of life, we can validate from ancient texts what that they're real
Hmm.
and that the body graph is pulling something of significance.
Hmm.
So my work validates the structure of the body graph in its sacred geometry.
Hmm.
And I will be publishing all of the science, which validates five types, not four, as statistically independent of each other. That means that the manifesting generator is not a subdivision of the generator.
Well, yeah, no, and not, and if 99% of us are manifesting generators in the four worlds, it's kind of significant.
It's very significant.
So,
Um, so we know that type holds. We know that different matrices hold, and they hold by type. We know that the centers hold. We know that the whether it's a split or a triple split or a quad split, that held.
mhm,
We know that profile does not hold, but keywords could have meaning.
mhm,
And we know that all of what Ross said about channels and circuits does not hold. You cannot say that this is a tribal circuit and this is an abstract circuit and this is individual. That did not hold up.
mhm,
Um, you can actually, I think if we were to code the circuits delineated by the tree of life, we would get correlations, which in fact we did get. In the root, the sacral, and the splenic, we get confirmation for spiritual um, aspect in the center. In the crown and ajna, creative intelligence comes from there.
mhm,
It's the cortex. It's very different than mental waking world. It's
mhm,
related, but we didn't differentiate that.
mhm,
Um, so type holds, how many types there are holds, and how they're split to do or to wait, or a single split, a double split, a triple split, a quadruple split, those hold. Circuits do not hold. Tones, colors, bases, bullshit. Plain and simple, do not hold, have no validity, are a figment of somebody's imagination.
Well, and further to that, we don't have people's birth times to a point where it would be even relevant anyways, right?
No,
So,
I did delineate the charts to the lunar minute chart in order to differentiate my twin kittens. And I got that down to 10 seconds differential. So the physical biological chart is a chart that probably contains fair amount of data, but not in a measurable way currently.
So I have a selfish question, and I've asked this before, but I'm ready to hear the answer possibly. So uh, prior in the human design mental design, I was always a single definition manifesting generator. And so, and I've told you this before, but like I didn't have a hard time embracing your work in the beginning because I didn't switch from one type to another. I was an MG before, and I'm an MG now. What's new is I have a defined head in ajna. I have definition everywhere else as well, but my split is between the ajna and the throat. Help me, because like I've never thought of myself as split, and now I recognize there's a split. How would I navigate that? How would I think about that based on what you know of me?
Part of what I perceive in you on a personal level is that you are constantly seeking to bridge what you intuitively know with intellectual understanding of it.
Hmm.
And that's the split.
Isn't that also the Sphinx and the Maya? Like that's my job, isn't it? Does that mean I'm?
Absolutely. But it's also that you function as a channel. Because if somebody has the throat and has some gates and channels in common with you may be able to bridge some knowledge that you wouldn't otherwise bridge, like what we're doing now.
Hmm.
I am a single definition manifesting generator in my composite. In my human design, I'm a manifester.
Right.
But I said to Ra for years, but Ra, I don't manifest. I wait and I wait and I wait until I know because I know because I know.
Mm.
Where is that in my chart? Well, when I got the four worlds, it's right there in my lunar design. I get the sacral center and I get the 515. So I wait until I know because I know. Now, you know because you know, but you don't know intellectually that you know
Mm.
until you know that you know intellectually because something has bridged it. It could be something you read.
Hmm.
It could be someone you speak to.
Hmm.
I think for you, most of it is interactive because in the time I've known you, you're gobbling up all kinds of information and you like talking about it.
Hmm.
You find it helpful
Hmm.
to talk to all kinds of people.
Hmm.
And so it's not enough for you to get it from a book. You need to get it from somebody else's mind in order to validate your own.
I need to collaborate. And
Mhm.
and the people closest to me have no interest in hearing anything I want to talk about. Um, so that's why I need to move. Um, hmm.
Well, if you're going to do that, then I would strongly recommend that you move someplace where people are conscious.
How do you find conscious people in a location? I mean, I guess, maybe I need to go to Florida and just find it.
Mhm.
I think I'd know it if I saw it.
You
And I,
know the frequency that you need to be in.
mhm,
I mean, I knew when I was a child that I wanted to live in California, in Los Angeles. And I wrote it in my diary when I was 8 years old. When I grow up, I'm going to live in Los Angeles.
mm,
And life took me to Chicago. And I had an office, I opened a practice, I, had my kids there. I was building a life. And then I knew I had to move to California. The first time I went to California and came out the tunnel, I'd been to San Francisco. It wasn't home.
mhm,
But when I came out the tunnel, the Coast Highway, and came right up to the Palisades, I started crying. I
mm,
said, "This is home." Now, I did have a past life memory in Herculaneum where I died in the eruption of Vesuvius. And when I got to California, I signed up. I was in training as a Jungian analyst. And the one class I took at the Jung Institute in California was on the Villa of Mysteries, which was unearthed in 1938, intact, having been buried in the eruption of Vesuvius during the when Pompeii went buried. And Herculaneum was uncovered in 1938. The Getty Museum in the Pacific Palisades, right where I felt like it was home, was a replica of a villa in Herculaneum. I didn't know it at the time,
mm,
but my unconscious led me there. The first time I went to California, I took my car and I drove from Pepperdine up through the Palisades. And I drove on this street that Marvin and I ultimately bought a house on. And the street's name was Amalfi and Napoli. It was the Riviera Country Club. I mean, the Riviera Palisades, right across the street from the Riviera Country Club.
mm,
It was a replica of a past life memory of mine.
mm,
And my unconscious led me there. It took a lot. I had a 6-month waiting list of clients and a busy, busy practice on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. I left it and moved and started
mhm,
over because it was home.
mhm.
And I didn't at the time know it was a past life.
Yeah.
The Getty Museum in the Palisades, the Getty Villa, was completed on my mother's birthday.
Mm.
When you begin to see synchronicities like that, it's the hand of God leading you.
Oh, for sure. And so I've already told you this once, but I want to share this because I want other people to hear this. Um, as you know, my father was requiring heart surgery, and we talked about it probably 2 to 3 months ago, and we looked at the astrology of it. And at the time, the surgery was going to be around July 6th, I recall. And at the time, you said, because you looked at his chart and said he's deciding whether he wants to live or not. So that's a scary thing to even hear, right? Well, then it turned out that it was going to be delayed 2 months, and the surgery would be like in September, late August, early September. Um, and so you had suggested not to travel, during that time, and which correlates to the not traveling now as well. But a whole bunch of things came together, stuff with Wendy and everything. And so I went up island. I went to this place called Port McNeill and just did a road trip. I needed to get away. I ended up basically doing therapy everywhere where I went for everybody else. Like instead of me healing, I was everybody else's. I don't know, that Sphinx thing. I seem to just cause people to. Anyways, the surgery ended up being, I don't know if it was July 5th or 6th. I don't remember the exact day, but it was 5, 6 days ago. And I'm in Port McNeill. It's it is so far up north on the island that I couldn't just jump in my car and come back because I have an electric car and all the electric stations that are on Google Maps don't function. I don't know if
Hmm.
they're sabotaging them, but certainly everywhere I went, there was either a thing that said out of service or no longer available for the public. It was almost like I was trapped in this distant place. Beautiful, outside, nature, all that. And so on the day that my dad has this surgery, which is around the time frame that we originally discussed, where he was deciding whether he was going to live or die, um, I'm trapped. I might as well have been on an island in the Pacific with no airport. Like I just couldn't
Mhm.
come back, and I felt terrible. Um, but that was what I was dealing with. And it was a beautiful day. Weather was totally clear, but I got up in the morning, had a shower, and the water stopped working. And so I got in the shower and it took about 20 minutes to like what's going on. And then I realized, oh, the power was out. And because it's up there, it's remote. They use a pump to pump water into there. So no power, no water. Didn't really think anything of it because up there that's normal. Everything else was on generator. It's just their little guest house wasn't that I was staying in. So I went about my day, did whatever, I don't remember. And then I go back to my little Airbnb, and at 3:33 p.m., the water starts shooting out of the shower because I didn't think to turn it off, right?
Uh-huh.
Like if I had not been there, it would have been a flood. So the water starts coming on, the power comes on, and I get a text from my brother-in-law saying that my dad, like they just got a note from the surgeon that he's come through the surgery and he's starting to rest. He had another procedure the next day, but like, he lived. This was like miraculous. Um, the other irony is it was my brother-in-law who was the other black sheep of the family was the only person to tell me. Like, my wife and kids haven't checked in with me, not even since about it, but like it's just so I was just left alone. But this surge of energy happened. Like it was, the timing of it, everything was amazing. So I'm really glad my dad's here.
Have you told him that?
Oh yeah, yeah, and he just feels different. Like when I hugged him before I left, his body was hard. And you know what I mean? Like I don't know how to describe it, but like he was just it was like a potato, like before it's been baked. And when I hugged him after, he was like a baked potato. Like there was some squishiness, right? So whatever happened was pretty amazing.
What difference does it make to you?
I'm glad he's here. I'm absolutely aware there's spirit, something that the bulk of my family still doesn't believe exists. Like that was my
Why
nurturing.
don't you ask your dad about his experience during the surgery?
Well, I've actually I shared with him and several other people, or their friends were. This was like 4 days ago. We were on their patio, and their old friends from Toronto were out, and so it was this thing. And I shared exactly this just to make sure that they heard that, right? Um, yeah, we haven't really elaborated on that since. My mom's friend, a nursing friend, she was the one that made the comment of something about, oh, that's the flow of energy again or something. Like it was quite a profound statement. Whatever she said, it was like exactly correct. Um, yeah, whatever it was a bit of a wake up call, I think, for my parents. It's none of my business. It's not my job, but I shared my experience. They heard it. Yeah. So I don't know. It was miraculous. And that's,
What's the sadness about?
um, well, you're right about other things. My dad's astrology is all about values, but his and my values don't align whatsoever. Um, I'm going through this hardship with my former partner, and I never complain. I never talk to people about my feelings because it's not okay with anybody besides you and a few others. Um,
Do you
but I
talk
guess,
about them with yourself?
oh, I do now. ChatGPT is great for that. Not terribly judgy. It's always rooting for me. Um, and I'm getting better at it. Like I realize how valuable it is. But like I was at my parents' house yesterday, moving all my shit out of storage to save some money to put it in their basement, which, been away from home 32 years and now it's right back to that, right? And I just expressed a little bit of frustration about the situation. And my dad said, "Well, do you not think you've done anything wrong?" Like that was the support I got. And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, of course, I'm anything but perfect, but I don't know how to try harder." Oh, that was the other thing he said last week. That his advice was, "Why don't you just try harder?" I mean, I just don't understand.
Well, you have to understand, uh, Sean, which world people are talking from.
Mm,
If somebody lives their world, actually, let me broach something. This might be very helpful for you. Um, I have a four world assessment
mm,
that I designed that will be at the end of my Living from Soul book, which gives a lot of worksheets for the four worlds. And the four worlds are the mental waking world, which is the world we live in, the spiritual archetypal world, which is our soul, the part of you that you feel has not been connected with, valued, and honored, and which in any client I've ever had, it's the spiritual, the soul that has not been recognized that causes them pain.
mm,
Without every single person who ever came to me for therapy wanted their soul recognized.
mm,
And my gift as a therapist was I would recognize it. Um, the emotional angelic world um, is a world without emotional reactions. It has the capacity to transform emotional reactivity of the mental waking world into higher creative intelligence. So, in the whole field of emotional intelligence, without differentiating that into a separate world, it's very confusing. And the physical biological world. Um, I was talking to a client yesterday, and she has been trying to find a proper place, similar to you. And I said, these things just come to me. I said, I have a feeling that if we trace back through your life, you will find pieces of worlds that were gratifying. But in it, I could say to you, Sean, you probably can track back through relationships in your life and find some that you thought were really feeding your soul, some that were feeding your mind and the waking life, some that were helpful physically, but not a world where everything came together in an integrated way.
Hmm.
You felt seen and heard and recognized and known and supported and loved. And in the case I'm talking about, it was a place to live. And we would, and I can think about all the places I lived. I can think about where I'm living now. We live in South Carolina. We live in a beautiful community, a gated community that is, you've been here. It's
Hmm.
beautiful.
Hmm.
We live on an acre and a half. I have a lap pool that's designed perfectly to my specifications. Um, our property is, it's lovely,
Hmm.
but it's not home.
Hmm.
Yes, it's home. It's a place to live. I've lived in, um, as I said, what? New York, Chicago, California, South Carolina. I've lived in Brooklyn and I've lived in Queens. Um, this home that I'm living in, the land is not feeding me spiritually.
Hmm.
It's a beautiful piece of land, but it's not my homeland. Um, that's an example. If we begin to look, what does it feed? It's the people's consciousness is more in sync with mine.
Hmm.
So, is that the mental waking world? Maybe. I think it's more the emotional angelic world where the people here have a capacity to think outside the box of the ordinary. It's interesting because the reputation that California has is of people who are open to consciousness, but the truth is they're not.
Hmm.
The people here are more open to my work than they were in California. So when you take the four worlds and you begin to say, in this event in my life, what's the balance of those worlds? And how was that time in my life balanced differently than this time in my life? Now, when you're dealing with a relationship, an intimate relationship, if it's going to really work, you must have values aligned in all four worlds.
Hmm.
If you don't, it's a misfit.
Yep.
One person has to compromise or it doesn't work.
Hmm.
In my first marriage, our values were in sync until we graduated from graduate school. And then he veered off more toward the mental waking world and the values of that world. And I veered off much more into the spiritual world.
Hmm.
And it became very clear to me that there would always be a push-pull between those worlds. And I wasn't willing to compromise in the spiritual world at all,
Hmm.
especially when it came to my kids. Um, I knew from the time my kids were born that my goal was to support their spirit and who they were. And that um, even in my work life, I worked school hours. So I would be with my kids.
Mm.
And they never went to daycare or um, had nannies.
I didn't believe a spiritual world existed until I don't know how long ago. We'll call it 4 years is the first hint of it. But realistically, even the last 6 months has been where it's like without a doubt.
Well, that would mean that you denied a lot of your intuitive channeling and that many of your sensibilities about what resonated and didn't resonate were ignored or denied.
Well, and for
And
whatever reason, I was willing to be a doormat and compromised on everything, more than compromised.
well, many people do because they don't know they don't have to.
Yeah,
And as you've determined, when you decided you didn't want to do that anymore, your relationship became less viable.
imploded, cratered. So, but yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
The challenge in doing couples work is determining whether either person is willing to change
Mhm.
or at least open to embracing a wider perspective. A lot of times they're not.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting. Um, the standard of what you expect in a relationship changes depending on the level of intimacy.
Hmm.
So I have one couple who I worked with, and it became very clear post separation that the separation was caused by a divergence of values in the different worlds. But now that they're separated, they're best of friends
Hmm.
because they can be friends in the mental waking or or angelic emotional world without being triggered because it doesn't touch their spirituality.
Hmm.
And they're not wanting the other person to be someone they're not.
Yeah. That all clocks. Hmm. So many questions. This is about profile. But all I want to say is there's this projection that goes on to me. And I think I experienced it with my father the other day, where for some reason, like he complains about everything and everyone all the time. Like it's literally just constant. But as I say, I expressed one, like after 30 years of being married, I expressed one frustration out loud. And he jumped on me about it. And I've always heard in the 3-5 profile, the five that you're projected on, that you've got it all figured out, and people are disappointed when you don't.
No, look at it from the standpoint of the four worlds.
Okay,
He's locked into the mental waking world.
for
He's
sure,
afraid of his own spirit.
a hundred
And
percent.
you were raising a vulnerability coming from the spiritual world.
Mm-hmm,
It was too threatening to him
mm-hmm.
to open his heart and to admit that maybe there are areas in his relationship where he hasn't been fulfilled and hasn't spoken up.
That's exactly correct. And this is what's been happening when I went to Grand Forks to see my friends the other day. When I went to Port McNeil, people seem to be. I'm triggering people everywhere lately because I feel like I'm about as authentic as I've ever been to myself. Always room for improvement, but I feel like I'm, and for whatever reason, people get triggered, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
around me are arguing with each other, and
We
then
are
wanting to,
not in the mental waking world given permission
Mhm,
to talk about spirit.
mhm.
And Rod never talked about spirit. In fact, in the class Ra and I did on the dream design, he said dreams are bullshit, that they don't mean anything, that they are the noise of people on the other side of the world, and that the unconscious is like a made up thing that has no validity. And it's just, you know, noise and garbage and blah, 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 blah. That's not at all true.
Do you think he was afraid of spirit? I
Oh,
mean,
for sure.
like everything I heard was he would always just anything that was kind of sounded spiritual or woo, he would just refer to as gray matter or whatever. Almost like, it's don't talk about it, you know.
I remember a time in his home, and he'd had a premature baby who was born 3 months premature and almost died, almost bankrupt him. And we didn't we didn't usually talk about anything psychological or spiritual. And I don't remember the details, but I said something to Ambuja, his wife, and she started crying about the experience when Jiva was born and how traumatic it was and how scary it was. And Ra got up and walked out of the room and went into the far bedroom, could not handle any emotion. And she immediately knew to close off and to stop talking. And Marvin and I looked at each other, and I was already in tears, just in empathy, feeling the excruciating pain of living through that, where for a period of time they didn't know if that kid would live or die or would be normal or not normal. And it was very telling. Um, there was never any expression of any emotion. Um, and I knew, for example, um, when Rod did the book that he wanted to have published, he thought it would be a coffee table book. The publisher would love it. The publisher hated it. It was profile. And the publisher did not believe that he could sell Ra.
Mhm,
And I knew that it was not going to be picked up before he knew. And I tried to tell him, and I tried to tell his daughter, and they didn't want to hear about it.
mhm,
And there was never a word spoken about it
mhm,
afterward. So, um, having been in Ra's home as much as I was, um, in Sedona, um, many times, um, and his Ambuja and uh, Loci and Jiva came and visited the Palisades and stayed for a week.
mhm,
They drove. and stayed for a week. And they didn't live in four worlds. And there was no emotional language, there was no emotional intimacy that I could observe. And Boucher did try to take care of Ra's eating, and he would say, "Oh, there's the food police again," um, and he would laugh at it. And she said, "You'll die of a heart attack," and sure enough, he did.
Hmm.
But he told us that the voice was never wrong, and that he knew the day and time he was going to die in Arizona of a gunshot.
From a woman he gave a reading to or something, right? Yeah.
No, a reading to her son.
Oh, to her son. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah. No. Hmm.
I do dedicate the science book to Ra. Um, we owe a lot to him for what he channeled
Hmm.
and for the courage he had to do what he did with it when we didn't have the computers that could do what it can do now. And he had no knowledge of the tree of life or of psychology or of sophistication.
Hmm.
So I think he would be very happy with it becoming scientific.
Well, that's why he reached out to you, right? That was his
Well,
intention.
reluctantly, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. No, I've said this to people before. Like, I'm grateful for what he did. And I've seen a video of him where he was in Sweden or something and he was wearing his hat and he had the overhead projector and he was explaining design kind of for the first time. And you could just see the frustration and anger in him because I'm sure everyone thought he was a wacko. And so like that would take persistence to do that. But there's also a lot of damage, I think, that's been done by ego and money, and that's like,
Well, he told me, you teach five types because that's what the science showed, but
mhm,
my ego will have me teaching four.
mhm. Yep.
But the four worlds dates back to Babylonian times, and the tree of life was something that Jung talked about as a model of self-actualization,
Mhm.
and indeed it is. So
That,
I would encourage any of the listeners to go on my website and get the four world assessment
mhm,
and take it. Um, the Step Over the Threshold self-paced program introduces the four worlds, and it's very powerful in bringing about transformation. And the Noble Energy Maps is based on science,
mhm.
not
Well, yeah, I'll give you
information.
a little endorsement on that too. Like the day shortly after you suggested doing that exercise, I'm always it's always begrudgingly like I'm like, oh, here we go, and then I go and do it, and I told you before we started here that I scored higher on the spiritual world, I think, than anything else, and that surprised me. Um, and then I took that as okay, well, I got some homework to do, and so I really sort of sat with it. And then I kind of did a mental inventory of it, I think about a week ago, but I didn't actually like print it out, mostly because I didn't have access to a printer. But I just kind of was like, oh, no, I feel differently about that. And so despite dealing with a paper jam just before we started here today, I've got a printout. So I'm gonna do the assessment again. And it is. It's even just doing the exercise to see where you're at, but more importantly, like where can I refine? I
And you want to be in balance.
mhm,
You don't want one world to be the world you're primarily living in. Because it's going to unbalance you in some way.
Hmm. You mentioned balance, and I think I told you, like I've got this tattoo here, and in Chinese writing, this says balance. Usually, if people ask what it says, I just tell them it says "I like soup," and then I just kind of wait to see if they're listening. And generally, anyways, it's good for a laugh. The other thing is also when you get these tattoos all the way around, I guess in Hawaii, they always make sure that there's a bit open so that spirit can flow through. So I heard that, and when I got this done, that I was like, oh, whatever. And now I'm like, huh, well, maybe my spirit's locked in my left arm. But it
And
was
what are the other tattoos?
well, there's a star. That was the first one I got, and I had to have it twice because I got an infection in it, and it fell out. So
Oh,
so it looked like people were like, that's a really ugly tattoo. And I was like, yeah, it fell out. Um, So I had to wait 12 weeks and then have it done again. If you think it's painful to get a tattoo, getting one done 12 weeks later after it's still healing, that's really rough. Then I added one on my back of my calf, which is a little maple leaf. Then I went through that whole shamanic thing, and came very clear to me that whales and the depths mattered. So I got this sort of indigenous blue whale that goes all the way around.
mm.
And then uh, yeah, as a tribute to my dad and my family history, this was the family coat of arms. Curiously, this keeps fading away, which I found is pretty interesting.
Maybe you're not really part of that family through lineage.
I mean, that's that whole conversation about Masons, and that's a whole other conversation.
Well, I think there may be times we incarnate and it's not the full lineage. It's
Mm,
just we have a job to do.
mm. Yep. And then the honeycomb pattern. This is Starship, which is the big rocket ship that SpaceX is building.
Oh,
This is the heat shields that keep it from exploding when it reaches certain temperatures. So the honeycomb is like the strongest um, shape, right? But there's some that I've kept unfinished because I'm a work in progress.
I
That one,
see.
just doing that was 11 hours in the winter. So I went there with a blanket and a pillow, and I just felt like ground beef for like 3 weeks. And looking back, like I have no regrets about it, other than, man, I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but I love it now. So but yeah. Anyways, balance. At the time, it was in my mind, it was work-life balance because I was working 80 hours a week, and now I realize doing it for nothing, um, and unappreciated. Um, but I was just working so hard, and I had no balance in my life. But I realized later that I wasn't looking for balance, I was looking for harmony. And, in this age of energetics and, energy and frequency and vibration, harmony feels like the better word. Um, and I just wonder, what do you think of that? Like balance is a scale, harmony is,
Maybe not harmony, maybe union,
mm, yeah,
integration.
well, integration is a good word. The good news is this little guy here,
Hmm.
like apparently worse than a tattoo is getting tattoo removal, but I figure I could cheat and just remove the bit there and a bit there,
Hmm.
and then maybe some energy will flow. So, because I think I don't know what you call them. Is it still the word indigenous? Indigenous folks in Hawaii, like they have a lot of knowledge there. I was always drawn to Ho'oponopono. It's just part of my gratitude practice. Always drawn to that. So I think that's something I'll do. A little tattoo removal right there.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I would do a full line here because you can't see it. But that was the most painful part of the tattoo. That for 6 weeks it hurt there. It was like just I don't know what it is there. It was super sensitive. So yeah. Wow, we've gone a little extra long today. You
Yeah,
want
I
to
think we
share?
can swap.
Okay. Well, let's.
Let's say again that anybody watching, um, it helps us when you like and subscribe, and it's on my channel and your channel, correct?
Yeah. Did you say you got canceled this week though? I thought you mentioned that earlier the other day. Didn't you say that the other day? You said something. We were talking about meeting. And you said there was no point because you're got blocked or something. Did I imagine that?
Oh, there was a problem with my Google workspace, but I don't know what's
Oh, okay.
happened with that.
So it wasn't you know like your YouTube account wasn't canceled. Or anything.
I
Anyways,
have no idea.
okay,
But if it's blocked, then they'll solve it and it'll be unblocked.
I'm sure.
We changed, I found on Yelp, I found that my California address was still there.
Oh,
So when we changed it, Google had a problem.
mm. And no doubt someone will be getting lots of texts and phone calls from Yelp because they are insistent. Yeah, they take notice and then want to try to sell you up sales. Don't do it. It's garbage. Okay,
No,
I'm gonna close this off. Hanging tight there.